I don't care whether you're male, female, gender, race, nothing. It doesn't matter. Like everybody needs somebody that they can go to and just talk. It doesn't always have to be like deep psychotherapy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need that person that you know you can tell everything to, and they're not judging you. They're not, going to tell everybody.
That's
just that person that you can go trust.
You started off as a counselor, is that correct?
That is correct.
A school counselor, and now you're a principal.
I am.
Okay, so tell me your story. So everybody has their own story, right? So how did you get into counseling? Why did you choose this area? How did it lead to you kind of to where you are today?
So when I was in high school, I actually wanted to be an accountant. I know, which does not very much seem like me if you know me. But I wanted to be an accountant. And I went and I met with like a career counselor. And we did a whole bunch of like career testing. They're like, nope, this is not for you. So like in looking at it, they always said you really score high in like a social realm.
Okay.
Like when you take those, like those personality and career tests,
Yeah.
like you really score high in that. And I was kind of one of those people in high school that like, I picked up everybody who didn't have a friend group. Like I had all of the outside kids as my friends, and a lot of people came to me for advice. Like I never had like a really tight social circle like that. I was kind of bounced all over, and just so kind of fit. Like I was always hanging out with different types of people and everything. And then I took a psychology class my senior year, and I loved it. I was like, this is amazing, learning all this great stuff and. Like learning the very basics of psychology. Yeah. So I ended up going and being a psychology major.
In college.
Yeah. Yep. And then I got a minor in school psychology, which is really focusing more on like testing and getting kids, getting test results like for special ed and personality disorders and stuff, which is very cool. But you also then think you're a little crazy because like you're like, oh wait, I can see parts of myself in like all of these different weird diagnoses.
Right.
So like they actually preface a lot of the psychology classes being like, this does not mean you're crazy. This is just, you're going to notice things. So don't everybody start walking out of here like freaking out.
That's hilarious. That's great.
It is. And they literally preface every class like that. So, but like I loved it. And then it became just, I didn't know what I wanted to do from that, but I liked school. Like I'd always thought about being a teacher, when you're little, like a lot of kids, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a teacher and do all this fun stuff.
You actually did it.
I did. And I ended up in the school as a school counselor. And, when I first started, I actually moved to North Carolina. I was in North Carolina for a while. Moved to Tennessee before I came back to Buffalo, which is where I'm from. Yeah.
Tennessee, wow.
Okay. Yeah, I was in Chattanooga.
Nice.
So, and I ended up back here. This is where I'm from. This is where my family is.
Okay.
And then, when Global opened, I was their, the high school part opened, I was their first counselor.
Yeah, you were their first ever counselor.
At the high school,
So, I mean, you've been out of college for some time after that, right?
I've been a school counselor for about 8 years when I started here.
Prior to that.
Yes.
Right? So you already had all that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you loved it right away, kind of right off the bat, and it seems like you did too, because not a lot of people know what they want to do, especially in high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what did you find that you loved so much about it, or how did you find that passion?
I liked people. I like meeting new people. I like learning about people. I trying to figure out what they think.
Yeah.
I like finding like an in to kind of get to know them a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not a person who's going to run into the party and be the life of the party. Like I kind of like the more intimate setting where like you can have one-on-one conversations or small groups and stuff like that. And it just all kind of fit. It just fit who I was, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in connecting with people and stuff. That's why I wanted to sit down with you. Cause I'm like, she definitely has an angle to this. I gotta know more. So, all right, cool. So you found your passion early on. You went to school for it. Then you got into Global. So let me ask some kind of career questions then.
Sure.
So being a counselor, I mean, what does that take? Like, I mean, it seems like you're almost the head of psychology at a high school, the psychology department at a high school. So it's like, how do you manage that? Like, what's your expectations coming in? Like, what do they expect from you, and how does that work?
I mean, when we first started, we had 50 kids and we were building the whole school. So it was really, building the plane while you're flying it. So it was kind of just whatever they needed, I did.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it was just me. So I was responsible for, any mental health counseling, plus all of the tasks that come along being a school counselor, college, career prep, working with kids on their academics.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
It was, but thankfully, Global's a small school. It's very much a community school. There's not 1,200 kids I was responsible for. There was 300. So it was easy to make those personal connections. It was easy to work with the families and stuff because there just wasn't a ton of you. So it wasn't awful. It wasn't as overwhelming as it would have been in a huge 1,500 person school where if I was the only one. But I enjoyed it, mostly because I enjoyed the kids and the families and the people I worked with. And having that relationship. And, while I never knew what to expect when I came to school, everyone had a good heart and most people were really coming from good places, despite what was going on.
Where does that come? That has to come from somewhere. I mean, how was if you don't mind, how was your upbringing?
Sure.
Was it a nurturing environment so where you were able to, kind of translate that into your own career path? How did that?
I think so. I was really lucky. My parents have been married for maybe 50 years now.
Wow.
I grew up in a stable household.
Yeah.
I have an older brother and a younger sister. We were a pretty close family. So
you're middle
I would
child.
Say I was the middle child. I was used to mediating anyways as the middle child. But, I saw a really good family unit.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then honestly, I've made most of my career working with inner city youth. I grew up in Amherst, which, is a fairly affluent area. Yeah. But all of my career has been with inner city youth. My first job and, through Global, we've got a pretty diverse population. So I don't necessarily reflect where I grew up, but I don't know, I kind of fit in, I guess.
Yeah. I understood. So how does it can you it may be hard because when I find a passion, sometimes it's hard for me to describe. So how does it make you feel when you're able to connect with somebody or a student or a parent or just anything? It's
a good feeling to know that you've made that personal connection. Hoping that something you've done has positively influenced someone, even if it's just a little I was having a really bad day and you took 5 minutes to acknowledge somebody and just be like, hey, I noticed you did really good on that, or I built that. It's a good feeling. And a lot of times, we don't see the repercussions of everything we've done. So
yeah, very true, because a lot of times you don't know how you affect somebody's life in the future. And a lot of times people still do remember those experiences because they meant a lot to them. So, how would you say, how important is it to kind of be selfless at times like that and take 3 minutes to help somebody? You think people need to kind of do more of that in the world?
In the world, absolutely. I think if we all took some time just to remember, everybody's somebody. Yeah. Everybody needs a hello, a good morning, a hey, are you okay every once in a while. I think we'd all be in a much better place.
Good call. What are some things you feel that you watch out for in people, right? That you see maybe somebody needs some help?
I think some of the things I look at is their interactions with other people. Are there, social. We have so many different groups of kids that we work with. But I'm looking, do you have a group of friends? Is there kids that you're interacting with regularly? Or are you someone who maybe is having difficulty reaching out to other kids, working with the other kids? That may be someone who needs a little extra attention or that I may need to try to link up with somebody. I listen to the conversations in the hallway. Teenagers have a tendency to think I can't hear them when they speak. I do hear them. I may not always choose to react. Yes, I'm aware. Most of you guys think I can't hear you. Yeah. I may not react to everything, but it doesn't mean I'm not listening. Yeah. You learn a lot that way. And so it's listening, am I hearing positive things or everything I'm hearing negative? If I'm starting to hear or see that there's just something not clicking, I'm going to try to make an effort to either talk to that kid or see if I can link them up with somebody or just make more of an effort. That's awesome. Because I get it. Most people don't want to talk to the principal or the school counselor. There's a stigma with that. But so I try to always find some other kids. Sure. Yeah, definitely principal. That's never good. Usually everybody assumes they're in trouble.
I got to go to the principal's office.
But I try to find other ways to get them involved, or I may tell a teacher, hey, can you keep an eye out on this kid? Or maybe ask them to be in your club. So sometimes I go and do it the background way, just not directly face to face.
And how do you find that helpful as well?
I think it's good. It helps the teachers build connections with students. It helps students feel more connected to the school.
So it kind of creates a whole like environment for that student to like a whole support group kind of thing.
Yeah. My hope is that always it feels like a community here. That when, whatever your group is, whatever your role in the community is, that you have a role and you feel included in the community.
Yeah. And you have children, correct?
I do.
How many?
I have 3.
You have 3. So how do you translate that to like the home life, like keeping that community kind of?
Well, my daughter's 12 now, so she doesn't want to be part of my community.
Okay.
But that's because she's a 12-year-old girl.
Of course.
But we do. We make it a priority to do things with our kids that they enjoy. Like my kids are all into the Animal Planet Behind the Zoo show, Secrets of the Zoo.
Yeah.
So every summer we take a family vacation and go to a different zoo.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that it's something they're interested in, they like.
Absolutely.
So we make it a big deal to do something that everybody likes.
Yeah.
We require my kids to sit down and eat dinner with us at least twice a week as a family, so that we're building that time.
Right, 100%.
Yep. We try to spend individual time with them doing things they like, and then we try to do things like, this may not be your favorite thing, but it's your brother's favorite thing, so we're all doing this today.
So your kids go to another school. How does it feel? Like, how do you pick their brains about like how they're feeling, their general moods throughout their days, when you come home or when you guys all meet,
I ask questions like, what did you do in school today? Like, who'd you hang out with today? Or tell me something exciting that happened. I don't ask a lot about their academics. I trust that their teachers will let me know if there's something I need to know.
Yeah.
I ask a lot more about like, what's it like for you? What kind of day did you have? Who'd you hang out with? I try to ask about their friends, more of the social stuff. Because I think that's a lot more telling than did you get an A on the test. And not that that's not important. Trust me, I hold them accountable for their grades. But if there's a problem, someone at the school is going to let me know that.
Yeah, I really like that philosophy to look at the social psychology behind it, because that means a lot. This interactions with a lot of people can tell. That's correct. Can you give me some of the things? So you're sitting down. Let's say somebody's having a hard time. They're having maybe a tough week, maybe a tough month. Something's happened in their life that's bringing them down. What are some of the things when you do finally have the opportunity to talk to them that you may recommend, that you may say to them to, kind of help them go in a better direction?
I think it depends a lot on the situation and what's the cause of it. Is it just a bad day? We all just sometimes have days where you're just miserable for that day, or is it something going on at home? Do they need some help talking to a parent about something? Is something going on at home I can help with? Is it you're having problems with friends? Do we need to do some mediation? Do I need to move you away from that group? I think it really just depends on the situation. The first thing I try to do, though, is get them to tell me, like, what's really going on. Because a lot of times I get glossed over versions of what's actually going on. There's, people don't want to tell on each other. They don't want to be seen as the tattletale or the snitch, I suppose. So it's trying to really find what the root of the problem is. Fidget toys work wonders for that. I know a lot of people are against fidget toys, but when someone's trying to talk to you about their problems, giving them something else to focus on, so it starts to come out. Or like basketball hoops on the back of your door.
Jeez, that's a great idea for the guys that love basketball.
My basketball hoop got a lot of use over the years. Pretty sure someone broke it.
That's a good one. That is really good. You know why why that correlation is? Why?
Because you don't have to focus on it. Like your brain can almost like relax because you're doing something else. Like it doesn't feel as intense.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. We talked a little bit about like some negative psychology. Can you give me some, or the importance? Like, because a lot of the times, even for, especially, maybe you'll agree, young men don't seek help or guidance as much, maybe as women, but can you tell me the importance, or how you stress the importance of, like, people should see, like, a psychologist, or somebody should have somebody to talk to, just somebody to lean on? Like, how important is that, and, like, why?
That's incredibly important for anybody. I don't care whether you're male, female, gender, race, nothing. It doesn't matter. Like, everybody needs somebody that they can go to and just talk. It doesn't always have to be like deep psychotherapy. Sometimes you just need that person that you can tell everything to, and they're not judging you. They're not, going to tell everybody.
That's huge.
Just that person that you can go trust. I don't think there's stigma attached to, I mean, I understand there's a social stigma attached to it, but like there shouldn't be that stigma attached to going and have to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
I think more people do it that we don't know about and just don't talk about it. And I wish people would sing its praises.
Why is that? Is that because people just want to maintain this image of being like a perfect life? And
it's a perfect life. You don't want people to think there's something wrong with you. I think innately people just don't want them to think, oh, you're seeing a counselor? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And that's people's first general thought.
Yeah, like I feel like that I've heard before in a book that, you know, in prehistoric times, like if we weren't accepted in a group, there's obviously more chance you won't survive. You know, you won't get food rations, you won't have the opportunity to mate or carry on your lineage, whatever.
Right.
You know? So yeah, I think that's built within us.
I think that's still a thing.
Yeah.
That, you know, you don't want to be the crazy person.
Yeah, no, understood.
And that is not a good clinical term, but you don't want to be seen as that.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be normal and fit in and not admit there could be something else wrong.
Right. But in reality, we're all dealing with something.
Absolutely. 100%. And I would say, if nothing else, the past couple of years with COVID and all that social isolation anxiety has really shown people, like, this is a normal part of life.
Yeah.
There is not one person I know who was not affected in some way negatively by the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything. I don't care what they say. Like, you can see it. We see it in the schools. I've seen it with my kids at home. I've seen it with family. Like, everybody had some sort of negative reaction from it.
Right.
And I think having that shared experience, people should be able to more willingly talk about it and be like, yeah, you know what? I went through all of this.
Yeah. I
survived and I came out on the other end. And that's something to be really proud and celebrated of. And I think that needs to happen more often.
Yeah.
But I still think there's a stigma like,
yeah.
I don't want you to know.
Can you tell me about, have you ever dealt with some people that have just been in denial, just that they need help at all, or just absolutely refuse it? And why do you think that is?
I think it's, kind of what I've been saying. I think it's really just, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm normal. There's nothing wrong with me. And those are really hard conversations to have. And
somebody says they're normal. I mean, how do you, because I feel like I was that person before too. I was like, oh, everything is totally fine. And then when I got a little bit older, went out into the real world, I realized that stuff was not totally fine. So it's like, it is hard to get through to that person. Like, what do you try to say to get through to them?
Sometimes it's a really blunt and frank conversation. Like, what you're doing is not normal behavior. Like, you don't see anybody else doing this behavior, so it wouldn't fall within normal.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just, trying to kind of skew their perception, trying to lead them in a direction you want them to go. But at the end of the day, it's down to that person. You can never force somebody to do something they don't want to do.
That's very true. It's very true.
I've tried. It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like they say that, people won't realize or they won't learn until they actually, I don't know exactly how to say it, but that's so true. Yeah.
It is. And, especially working in a school, like, a lot of it is dependent on parents. There's a lot of parents who are not willing to accept that their child may need extra help because they think it reflects on them as a parent. And it doesn't, And
talking about the connection of the parent in a child, like how strong is the influence of a parent on a child?
Oh, huge. Probably more than we ever realize. Yeah. Both negative and positive. If you've got parents who are loving and supportive, chances are you're more likely to get the supports you need to be able to have those open conversations. If you're with parents who aren't like that, then you're much more likely to be closed-minded or seeking out that approval from other people. I mean, it's very classic. We hear about it all the time. But I've watched it play out.
Yeah. So how do you, for the future parents out there, people that are parents right now, how do you recommend them to deal with the psychology of their kid, really?
Take some time to get to talk. Just talk to them. And it doesn't always have to be these serious, in-depth conversations, but asking simple questions. What's something brave you did today? What was something you did today that really excited you? And you're going to start seeing it.
Good questions.
Yeah, because they're pointed questions, but they're not like direct, like, are you not feeling well today questions.
You have some skills. Nice. I wanted to answer that one. I was going to say, I came in here and interviewed you. I was brave.
Well, when you were in high school, I don't think you would have.
That is awesome.
But So asking those type of questions,
Yeah.
you know, who'd you sit with at lunch today?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, you know, have you talked to your friend so-and-so
Mm-hmm.
recently?
Yeah.
You know, when you start hearing the no's, no, I haven't, I sat by myself,
Mm.
like that's when you know you need to start digging a little deeper.
Yeah.
But if you're hearing, oh, I sat, you know, and they're happy, then you can
Mm-hmm.
you can go around
I
with the
can see
assumption that,
that,
things
yeah.
are okay.
Uh-huh.
You know,
I love
especially
that.
when it's a consistent thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we touched on a little bit of some negative things. Can you list or can you give me things that you've seen, like traits in people that may have lead to more successful life, that may go on past high school and be a little bit more successful? Are there like any traits that you've seen when they were younger that carried on and made them be more successful?
Survival is a huge one. Kids who come from adversity or, you know, something that's held them back. Both adversity is probably the best part, but you still see them coming in every day and putting their all in, doing their best to be positive, trying to, you know, do their schoolwork, trying to show up on time despite what's going on outside. Those are survival skills, and they're going to take them far because you're always going to be able to push past and keep going.
Wow, that's that's not mentioned a lot, I feel like. Yeah, being able to deal with adversity. What's the word I'm looking for? The word that you're really given any resourceful, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm looking for.
Resourceful.
They can kind of make whatever they want from the situation.
It's those kids who keep fighting despite what happens.
And how do you think you create that kind of mindset? Like, where does that come from?
I don't know if that's something you can create or it's just something that almost has to be innate within a kid. You keep encouraging them. Despite anything going on, you always keep encouraging kids. You hold them to a standard. You hold them accountable. But you keep encouraging it. You know, you can't... In schools, we have a tendency to want to do punitive. A lot of, like, punitive discipline. You know? And, yes, that's important. You have to have rules. You have to have, you know, things that you have to follow within society.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, you still need to make that connection. You need to repair that relationship once you've given a consequence. You need to make sure that kid knows, hey, I'm still there for you tomorrow. You know, we may have had a bad day today, but tomorrow we're good, you know? And it's making sure that you do that so those kids know that just because you screw up doesn't mean that it's over.
Right, yeah, because like it's falling off the horse, just get back on. That's that, being able to deal with adversity and survival.
Yes.
100%.
And that's helping build those survival skills. So you know that, okay, just because you screwed up, I still have to come back tomorrow and do my best.
Wow.
We've all done that.
Yeah. I feel like a good topic to bring up real quick or briefly is that when you're young, a lot of the times you may feel a lot older than you are. And you feel like you might know more things than you actually do.
Yes.
Do you see that a lot?
Oh, teenagers know everything.
Yeah.
No adult knows anything, and teenagers know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that all the time. You know, and I laugh and chuckle because I can't tell you the number of you who've come back after graduation and been like, you were right.
You're right. Yeah.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah, it's so true. So true.
It's just learning to work with it and not taking things that people say, you know, to heart.
Yeah.
You know, there's been plenty of times where kids have told me they've known better than me, and I'm like, okay, well, that's fine.
And how do they? And so you're saying they come back and tell you the truth. So they're most likely learning just from those experiences. So like the experiences that they're getting after high school really whips them into shape and really helps them realize. Yeah.
Well, because a lot of times you're out on your own then. Like, there's no safety net. School, your parents, that's a safety net for you to catch you when you start to fall.
That, safety net, yeah.
So when that safety net is gone and all of a sudden you're falling, you're like, wait, why did no one stop me doing this? You know, that's when people start learning. They're like, oh, I guess maybe some of that advice you gave me was accurate.
Wow. Yeah. So would you go on to say that, you know, maybe more experiences that are tough experiences just lead to building better character in people and building?
Sometimes. I mean, not that you ever want to see people fail and fall completely and hit rock bottom, but I mean, you have to get your lumps too, and you have to take, you know, sometimes the trip and the fall to realize, okay, that was dumb. I should do something different.
Awesome. That's great. So you went from being a counselor to a principal. How did that happen? And what kind of mind switch does that kind of take?
I mean, I had my administrative degree, so I was actually certified to do it. I'd been working with Mr. McGee, who was a former principal, you know, for a couple of years, taking on more administrative roles. So it was kind of a gradual phase in, which was really nice instead of just like, boom, here you go. There is definitely some different switches. You know, as the counselor, you get to be very warm and fuzzy, and you know, yes, you do some harsh realities and you do some harsh truths, but at the end of the day, you're also kind of like the person everyone comes to when they want to cry, or you know. And as the principal, you're not necessarily. That was a hard switch for me.
Yeah.
I'm still a counselor at heart. Yeah. I still care. I still want to know what makes people tick. But you know, that's a tough switch to go from being warm and fuzzy to the person who has to be like, but now you're suspended.
Yeah, that's very tough switch. Very tough switch personally. I was thinking about that like today. How does that? She must have really had a psychology switch there, making that transition. Awesome. Is there anything that you'd maybe touch on that you'd like to add just about, mental health at all, or topics that you've studied in the past that just really interested you, or?
It's always really interesting is like the social psychology, the social aspect of it. Like, how do we act when we're by ourselves versus how do we act when we're with different groups of people? You see that a ton in high school. Like when I'm with my friends, I'm one way, but when the door closes, I'm a completely different person.
Yeah.
That's always been fascinating to me because which one's the real you? And they're probably both the real you, but you just haven't developed into that whole person yet. Yeah. Where you're comfortable enough in your skin, like this is who I am all the time. Yeah, 100%. So that to me is super fascinating to watch.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's so fascinating. I feel like you might not even develop the full you. Like, is there a time for? Is there like a?
Not really. I know some 25-year-olds who are really, really secure in themselves and who they are, and like this is me. And then I know some 50-year-olds who are still trying to figure it out. So I don't know. There's a timeline. I think it just becomes when you're comfortable with you.
And how do you know when you're comfortable with you?
I think there's just an inner sense of peace. That doesn't mean that everything's always perfect, but you're okay with who you are, whether you're by yourself or whether you're with a group of people. Like you're okay with who you are.
And that means you're not being self-critical. You're not.
No, you can still be self-critical, but it's knowing that okay, you know what, I had a bad day and I was not happy that I reacted something this way, but I'm going to move on tomorrow. Yeah. Like it's a peaceful feeling like that. It's okay, whatever I did.
Awesome.